Hello, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the RITIS user group meeting, second quarterly meeting for 2022. And I think we're going to get started. I know folks are just entering, but there are some housekeeping items that we can go over. So on behalf of the Eastern Transportation Coalition, we'd like to welcome you. So just a few housekeeping items to keep in mind. We are using Zoom webinar today, so you can use your audio either through your computer or phone, whatever works better for you. And this web meeting is being recorded. If you have any questions about the audio or web, please contact Esther directly via email. And just a note that the chat box is not available to participants. However, we'll have plenty of opportunity for questions, and we're going to do that in the Q&A box. So all we ask is that you click on that Q&A box, type in your question. We'll monitor those, and at the end of each session or at the end of the meeting, we'll make sure those questions get answered. If you'd like to ask a question verbally or maybe explain something a little bit further, you'll be able to speak. So all we ask is that you raise your hand, and then at the appropriate time, one of the hosts will unmute you so that you can ask your question. And at this point, I'm happy to turn it over to Denise Marco. She is the Tismo Program Director for the Eastern Transportation Coalition. Denise?
Thanks, Joanna. Can you hear me?
We can. Yes.
All righty. Well, welcome, everyone. We're excited with we have some good stuff to talk about today. Let me get started. Next slide, Joanna. So I guess I'm doing the agenda. Okay. So after the housekeeping that's done, and after I do a coalition update in terms of what's going on, I'm going to turn this meeting over to Jesse Burke. He's one of our fantastic co-chairs for the RITIS user groups. He's going to do some welcome, some introductions, some bios, and then talk a little bit about the polling that's going to take place. And then from then on, he's going to transition over to Ian, and from Ludian is going to talk a little bit about his spotlight presentation. Michael Pack and Charles Lattimer, they talk about the RITIS tools and enhancements. There's an enhancement demo that we're going to show you. Rick Ayers is going to talk a little bit about the workshops and the updates that we did a couple workshops in March and what the results of those were. We're going to have a working group update on the performance measures working group from John Allen, the enhancement working group update from Michael, any input from the group at the agency input session, and then we're going to wrap it up. So as you can tell, we're loaded with info. Let's get started. Next, please. Welcome in Kentucky. As of middle of March, the executive board of the coalition approved Kentucky to be its newest member of the coalition. So we'd like to welcome them. We are looking forward to Kentucky Transportation Cabinet's involvement in all of the work that we do. And so it's a big welcome to them. They are our 18th agency right now that we're working with as a full voting member of the coalition. Welcome. Next slide. So my final slide has to do with the coalition update, and we're really focusing a lot these days on a lot of the work we're doing with data. So in the recent, since of March, there's been quite a lot going on in terms of data. We had a summit in March that talked about new travel info services for commercial vehicles, how driver alerts, trucking navigation, how they get out to the truckers and getting good information on their roadway networks. Then we had a series of, we've been doing a lot of work with RITIS, two workshops in particular. Rick Ayers, and he's going to give you an update on that, building the corridor performance summary report. And then he came back a couple weeks later and talked about understanding OD data. So again, we've done a lot of work with RITIS. You're going to get an update later on in this meeting. We kept New England Hogs in there because there was a lot of discussion. This was a virtual meeting with the group from New England that really focuses on incident management, but we talked a lot about the RWIS, the road and weather information data, and how that's being used in winter operations, and that was attended by the 5 New England states along with Eastern New York. The TDM Validation Tech Advisory Committee meeting that was held in April, that is a new committee that was just formed. It was born out of the traffic data marketplace and the new marketplace project that we just finished and released a new contract. this is the committee that's working on really the getting into the weeds on the data, validating the data, whether it's volume data, freight data, OD data. That's being led by Stan Young. If anyone's interested in being part of that tech advisory committee, please send an email to Stan or myself or Joanna, and we will get you connected. We had an electric vehicle workshop in April. It was a special invite only. We had representatives from the states really discussing what's next, what should they be expecting in terms of EV works, EV data, EV infrastructure. And then just last week, we had a great webinar on CAV data and making sense of that, the CAV data. All of this information, much of it you can be found on our website as well. What we have upcoming, 3 things that are important relative really to data, and a lot of it is travel information. I'm going to skip down to Waze for a second because we have a great working relationship with Waze. We work with their product team, their engineering team. We hold a biannual meeting. We were working with them on some of their product features and feature facets and how to improve their app. We turned around and said, now that we've got this great relationship with Waze, let's do the same thing. Who's the next target of all those third-party mapping companies? And so on June 2nd, we have a meeting with Google Maps. And the game plan, again, is to how do we get better data, more efficient and timely data to the traveling public. And then the one in the middle, the state contracting biannual meeting, that's really with the states that buy data through our marketplace and their state point of contacts that we meet with twice a year as well. So again, a lot going on, a lot relative to data. Any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email. All righty, next slide, please. And this is there's a couple slides here on our new transportation data marketplace update. There's the logo, that's our new logo, which highlights the 6 data sets, travel time, volume, freight, waypoint, OD, and conflation. And again, the RFPS process is complete. We have just completed the contracts. We're formally and officially signed last Friday. So we have a live, living, breathing contract that has 6 data sets for members that they can buy at a discount off of our marketplace. The contracts are being written so that the data starts flowing July 1. Alrighty, next slide, please. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jesse. And Jesse is our manager of the Office of Capital Programs and DVRPC. Jesse, I don't have a bio for you because I probably didn't look it up, but I know that you want to tell them a little bit about what you do. What I can say is that you are an amazing co-chair. You do great stuff. You speak very well. So take it away. I'm going to shut up and turn my video off now. Okay.
Thanks, Denise. You're too kind, as always. Yes, I'm the manager of the Office of Capital Programs here at DVRPC. So we're hard at work updating our transportation improvement program for Pennsylvania right now. So that's keeping us busy. But as always, it's just great to hear about all the activity that the coalition is working on. Just so many great projects, and just amazing to see how the marketplace has grown and matured, and just offering such great and helpful information for everyone. So welcome everyone today, and thank you for joining us. Good afternoon or good morning, depending what time zone you're in. Next slide, please. I want to welcome today's speakers. As always, we have a lot of great speakers, several people from the CATT Lab. So we'll start off with the CATT Lab folks. Michael Pack, of course, is the director of the CATT Lab at the University of Maryland, where he works to make transportation data more easily accessible and usable by operations planners and researchers. And prior to the CATT Lab, Michael worked at the University of Virginia and Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Going across the screen here, Rick Ayers. Rick has over 30 years of experience working with location-based enterprise software systems at federal, state, and local levels, and now he's the public sector advocate at the University of Maryland CATT Lab. And in that role, he serves to support state and local transportation agencies in the successful implementation and deployment of RITIS, a tool which I'm sure many of you are using daily. Before we get to our featured speaker today, let me hit the other 2 folks from the CATT Lab. John Allen assists in user experience, user interface development, QA/QC, and manages special projects and aids in developing strategic directions for RITIS and the Probe Data Analytics Suite. John has also acted as facilitator for a number of different organizations, including the Eastern Transportation Coalition and the partners in using archived operations data. Charles Lattimer is a senior faculty specialist at the CATT Lab, and Charles helps transportation agencies improve communication through better data visualization. His role at the CATT Lab includes promoting user-focused enhancements to RITIS and shepherding the development of the RITIS signal analytics platform, which is a pretty cool tool for those of you who've used it. Between his time spent with the university and the private sector, Charles has over 18 years of experience in transportation data and intelligent transportation systems. And he also serves as the vice chair of the TRB Standing Committee for Visualization in Transportation. Finally, last but not least, we're very excited to have Ian Machen here with us today. Ian is the CEO and founder of Ludian, and he's a chartered engineer and highly respected within the transportation industry with 30 plus years of experience in all aspects of transportation and technology. Some of his previous experience includes a global role in both high-speed and underground rail, intelligent transport systems, intelligent mobility, and smart city areas. I think everyone's really going to enjoy his presentation that we'll get to in just a moment. Next slide, please. So as always, just want to thank everyone. It's always amazing to see people from all around the country joining into these webinars, just grown so much over the years. Welcome to Kentucky, the newest member, as Denise said. You know, we've got folks from Florida to Vermont on the East Coast, and now we're stretching all the way out to the West Coast. You know, I see we've got folks from Nevada, we've got Oregon represented. So just amazing. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. And I hope you all get a lot out of the information that we'll be sharing. Next slide, please. And so, you know, we wanted to kick things off with a little poll to just get a sense of how often folks have been attending these meetings. You know, some of us have been doing this for years, and for others, this might be your first meeting. So we're going to bring up a little poll just asking how often you attend, whether it's once or twice a year, 3 or 4 times a year, or maybe this is your first meeting. So please go ahead and fill that poll out, and then we'll post the results in just a moment. Hopefully we see a lot of 3 or 4 times per year. You should be attending these webinars, but maybe it's your first meeting, and that's great too.
Give it just another few seconds, Jesse. People are still chiming in. Okay, it looks like we're ready to close that poll and share the results.
Great. So great to see a lot of people that attend 3 or 4 times a year, and a lot of newcomers. So welcome to all the newcomers, and I hope you really enjoy today's meeting and get a lot out of the presentations. So with that, I think we will head into the spotlight presentation, and I will turn it over to Ian. Go ahead, Ian. Thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you, Jesse, for the introduction. And I'm going to share with everybody now a recent project that we undertook here at Ludian using the RITIS INRIGS toolset. So, Las Vegas Boulevard. Hopefully, the group on the call have all heard about the our little street here in Nevada. So the project brief really was to understand would the implementation of an adaptive signal control technology assist with the improvement of the boulevard based on certain criteria. So the project area on the left-hand side of the slide here covered a large section of the boulevard plus surrounding areas. We had a total of about 120 signals within that area, but 55 of these were deemed to be further analyzed from an adaptive traffic signal perspective. The project had a raft of stakeholders. The client was the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada, and the state was involved, the county, the city of Las Vegas on the top left-hand side, and again the utilizers of this network. So the Resort Corridor Association, the representatives from the resorts, MGM, Caesars, Wynn, Venetian, and the Las Vegas Convention Center, as we know, a huge attractor of visitors within the area. So the project was to look at again how can we improve this area. Now, a little bit of background into Las Vegas Boulevard. We had over 32 million visitors last year. And this brings specific challenges to the area in respect of traffic, vehicle traffic, commercial traffic, pedestrian traffic, and it overlays a lot of the different challenges that these do with conflict, as you can see on the right-hand side, with these heavy pedestrian flows, especially on evenings in the weekend, is we've got cars and pedestrians, or vehicles and pedestrians in the same area, and a lot of the attendees are in holiday mode and don't always follow the rules of the road when pedestrians. So we have these big challenges and a big safety concern here. So, and as the valley and Las Vegas grows in respect of attracting more and more visitors, recent build of the Allegiant Stadium for the Raiders, again, a big attractor. We've got T-Mobile, the ice hockey team, the Golden Knights, again, a big attractor and growing, and other events there, large conventions and concerts, and an ever-growing attractor. And again, recently announced the F1 is coming next year. So again, more and more attractors that build traffic. So the bringing together of all these challenges gets called or nicknamed the perfect storm. And to explain a little bit what we mean by a perfect storm is a lot of construction work is happening now in the area and future planned over the next 5 years. So again, we looked at this and the impact it has on and around this area. Heavy pedestrian flows, as I mentioned before, and for events such as the Allegiant Stadium, part of the road network is closed to allow for those pedestrian flows, but that's part of the plan to ensure that, again, people can move around the network, but again, has challenges with the road network. A lot of traffic signals that are impacted by this construction work and this additional flowing pedestrian and vehicle. And when we're looking at construction programs, vehicles have to be rerouted, which again causes extra challenges and pressure on alternative routes that are serviced by commercial for deliveries in the area, as well as vehicles that would typically take the Las Vegas Boulevard, or for example, here we see Tropicana and the I-15 freeway. So get lots of pressure and challenges on these. So it leads to capacity overflow and increase, as we mentioned before, an increase in visitors and residents as construction and housing grows in the area. So again, more of an attractor to the area. So when we took on this project here for our TC, it was a short timescale project. We didn't have the luxury of enhanced traffic counts. Again, we're looking at 55 intersections. So analyzing that data or collecting that data, shall we say, in a traditional traffic impact study was not feasible. So we looked at alternative methods to understand the study. So the study really looked at, again, what the current condition is, what the future program potential condition would be in respect of use of that road network or that transportation network in the area. So we had to do a capture of what's actually happening now. So we utilized the RITIS tool set. And what I'm going to give you a quick brief over is how we used the bottleneck ranking, the trend map, performance charts, the travel time delta ranking, and user delay costs as part of the analysis of the project. So the first one I'm going to talk about is bottleneck ranking. So here we picked the top 3. So this was looking at the complete year of 2021. because we've got that completed year when we're utilizing the study. So looking at these top 3 here, again, a real insight into what areas are causing bottlenecks. A lot of construction work happening in the north end of the Las Vegas Boulevard, which for ranking number 1, which lasted 47 days out of the 365 days of the year, and its average daily duration was just over 3 hours. So again, constant impact on that network for this construction. And again, looking at rank 2 and 3, large impacts, but again, a great way to visualize the bottlenecks in the area and what's causing them. So again, this highlights where the issue is, and then we can then look and analyze why in this area are we getting such a big impact on this road throughout the year of 2021. And again, moving on to trend map and performance charts. So I'm going to play a video here of trend mapping on the comparative speed within this area. Now, as we can see, the map on the left is during non-game event during the month of September. The image on the right is looking at when there is a game. So again, we utilize the data split within the tool set to say, let's look at it without a game and then game. When I talk about game, it's the T-Mobile Arena. So this is where the Golden Knights ice hockey team play. A large attractor. I've been there personally myself, and again, there's lots of challenges on the run up to the event. After the event, it's very well managed and traffic is displaced. But we want to understand what happens on before the event. So as people are arriving within that area. So this was a great way to visualize, and again, we can pull the raw data off and the back end to understand what times are we seeing challenges, why we're seeing challenges, and how does that extrapolate against the rest of the road network. And again, as we look at larger construction programs, is if there's less availability of lanes, for example, the project's going to happen shortly on Tropicana with the 215 interchanges, we're still going to have the same demand in traffic with less capacity availability on the network. So how is that going to affect? So again, this was a great way to understand the current status, and again, take that going forward. So here we see, sorry about that. We see the impact of this travel time reliability again, and the times of day that this impacts that particular road network on Tropicana. So we see a big peak in travel time. So again, left-hand side is non-game, right-hand side is game night. Again, the same set of data around September. So we see a big jump on the east and west movement on here. So when we undertook this study and used the RITIS tool set, it was not about moving vehicles north and south along the boulevard. It's about the whole impact of that project area. And what we found from this piece of study for Tropicana on where the Golden Knights Stadium is that during this entrance to the event, it peaked very heavily on the east and westbound movement. Next one is the Delta ranking tool. I apologize, this is a very busy slide. But what this shows us here is on the axis to the left is congestion, and on the axis across the bottom is reliability. So going to the right, it means the reliability gets worse. And if we go higher up, the congestion levels become worse. So this is looking at an event called the Electric Daisy Carnival. Now, this is an event that's on the top end of Las Vegas, really north end of Las Vegas, around the Speedway. So it's off Las Vegas Boulevard, but there's 500,000 people turn up for this event over that week. So we wanted to understand how does something that's not directly in the project area, how does it affect the road network, the transportation network? So this is looking at weekdays compared to the average for the whole year against that 1 week for weekdays. So we can see here that, for example, if I take the street here, 3, which is Sahara Avenue. So we see here, for example, that during this week, based on that yearly average, is we increase travel time reliability from around 36.5% up to around 46%. So a big step change in there. And again, this allowed us to understand how these events impact this area. Also, there is some changes here for the positive. So if we look at Las Vegas Boulevard itself here, in 20, we actually see a slight improvement in that travel time reliability. And again, this becomes more apparent on the weekends on the next slide, because on the weekend is the main focus of this event. So again, we see this big step change, and there is other events happening during this time. And the focus here is that, again, everybody's spent the weekend at the event, so there's less traffic actually on Las Vegas Boulevard. So we do see a marked improvement here in movements along the boulevard. So again, quite interesting results utilizing the tool set to say what exactly has happened on here. Okay, I see an answer on there, which will get sorted. Thank you so much. So looking the next one, again, to round up really on user delay cost analysis is, again, for the full year 2021, we really wanted to understand the financial impact to the users of the area, of the project area. And to do this, we took the vehicle delay cost calculation, input into that the actual hourly costs for the state around commercial and private vehicles, and staggering figure of just over $20 million to the users of that road network in time and gas costs. So if we did that calculation again now, that would actually peak quite a lot higher because of the increase in gas costs. But this is a real a great way to visualize how this is affecting people's pockets because of the delays along that road network for the year. So again, and we see a big peak in March here, because in March of 2021, Las Vegas opened up its doors to the public. There was a step change in the mandate requirements. Restaurants opened up to a level, the casinos opened, the bars opened. So there's a big inrush, and also there's a big basketball tournament nicknamed March Madness that happens in March. So again, see a big attractor, so a big peak in that travel delays, because again, a lot of people drove in and utilized the transportation network, which had a big impact on the costs. And if we break that down, so again, looking at March here, we can really pull out when the problems are. So again, when we're doing this analysis piece and this feasibility piece on where are the problems and when are they happening, and how does that impact? So again, if we start looking about cost benefit analysis and return on investments, this is before any changes are implemented within that project area. So as we see changes, improvements, we can then see how this changes the dollar value to the users of that road network. So again, me as a local resident, when I'm utilizing that area, how is that affecting my my cost in delay and gas? So it's a great way to visualize where the problem areas are utilizing the RITIS tool set. So based on the work undertaken at Ludian using the RITIS data set, we came to the conclusion based on the data, so actual specific data analysis, that adaptive signal control technology will bring a benefit to that project area, so not just to Boulevard. Again, working with the stakeholders on this project was, we wanted to show how it's going to be improved. You know, we don't want to make Las Vegas Boulevard a racetrack, not until November next year on F1. But we're not looking at implementing something that's going to help just that one corridor. This was a whole project area, because the east and westbound movements are sometimes higher than the north and southbound. So again, understanding how the technology works based on this data analysis we did enabled us to say, yeah, adaptive signal control technology will benefit the project area. And recommendations for the next steps we gave to RTC was, create the ConOps, how it's going to operate, and really enhance how data is captured in the project area, and looking at, again, pedestrian only phases because of this real safety issue and clashes between vehicles and pedestrians. And really to close out, the importance of data as part of this process. Again, from a from a consultant's perspective, and utilizing the RITIS toolsets with INRIX is, again, I can use that data visualizations to explain to the whole audience and the stakeholders what's happening and where is it going. So how is the current status going to change based on this visualization, based on real data. So, interpreting what we did from that visualization and compendium, again, what does that mean to me, and how does that going to affect my everyday use? So again, a great use for us using the RITIS toolset for this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, it's a really interesting presentation. Just a reminder to folks, feel free to use the Q&A to type in any questions. I think we have one. Just my comment on the presentation. I think it's really interesting how I think a lot of folks on in this webinar today are used to dealing with more sort of peak hour congestion on weekdays, but this is really a very complex weekend issue that you're trying to deal with, overlapping events. So pretty interesting stuff, and really great utilization of the tools. So we did have one question come in, which has been answered, but I'll just read it so that folks can hear the question out loud. Ed Stilk was just asking about running the bottleneck reports on Las Vegas Boulevard and whether or not you've found any issues with using the TMC codes, that are the kind of the backbone of the bottleneck data. Ed's had some issues, on signalized roads in terms of granularity, and also just complementing the presentation. So, Michael typed an answer in. I'm not going to read the whole thing there. Folks can see that. And then Linda also just said, that she didn't find any issues with the TMC bottleneck data. So I don't know if anyone, either Ian or Linda or Michael want to say anything more about that before we move on.
Oh, I mean, the bottleneck data, again, we didn't have any issues with running those reports. And again, one good thing, it coincided with what was viewed and witnessed in that area, because again, the number one bottleneck, the location at the start of the bottleneck corresponded with construction work that's happening again in that area and over that period of time. So it represented actual very, very clearly.
That's great. Always good when things are confirmed, right? What you suspect to be true turns out to
exactly
be true.
Exactly. So that it mirrored site observations, and again based on the on-site work we did on verification. We didn't do any traffic counts, like I said, on site, because the project didn't deem that requirement. So utilizing this was really good.
As we're talking, another question came in here. from Chad Parasa asking, was there data on origin and destination of trips available for this project? And then to elaborate, just understanding sort of what percentage of traffic originating, from like south versus north or east, west, et cetera. So not sure if you looked at anything like that for this particular project.
Yeah, we looked at, again, that OD data. So because some of the, again, what we've shown today is a snapshot of some of the tool sets we used, and a snapshot of some of the results out of that analysis. So the full study, I can, obviously that's public information, so I can share that with the group. I can send a link out to the group to see that, to go into the details of the OD information. And again, that split, as you mentioned, from north, south, east, and west, because again, you can have a perception that everything's going north south on the boulevard, where it's not. There's certain times of day where the east west traffic is higher than the north south traffic, because there is such again, you got that the I-15 running in parallel to Las Vegas Boulevard, so a lot of vehicles are coming off there into that area. So, and again, they're just crossing Las Vegas Boulevard as a typical either commute route or access to some of the resort areas and the event areas. So, we looked at a few of the intersections that we had count data for. We looked at that split in the numbers. So again, that data is available.
Great, thank you. I think we've got all the questions for right now. If anyone else thinks of other questions, feel free to add them at any time. I guess at this point, we'll move on to the next presentation, but thank you so much, Ian. Really interesting stuff.
Thank you.
So at this point, I'll turn it over to Michael and Charles to talk about some of the new enhancements and recent upgrades to the various RITIS tools. So take it away, whoever's starting. Michael, I think.
Yeah, I'll be starting out. Charles and I are going to be tag teaming this presentation. Next slide, please, Charles. All right. I think we mentioned that we were close to deploying this last time. It has now been officially deployed. The event query tool within RITIS, which allows you to go in and look at agency event data, past crashes, construction events, that sort of stuff. It now has all of the Waze agency data. I'm sorry, the Waze data for the United States. So if you are a state who's a RITIS subscriber and you've signed your Waze data sharing agreement, the Waze data is available, and it goes back several years in some cases, depending on the region. So you can run queries and you can take a look at histograms for the breakdowns of different types of events that occurred on different types of roads. You can filter by road type. You can filter by incident type. You can also switch over to maps, and you can do heat maps and different types of diagrams as well. Next slide, please. We also fully implemented a new feature in RITIS that allows agencies to filter down the Waze data. It's recognized that a lot of agencies have a good understanding of what's going on their main roads anyway, because those are the roads they're monitoring with other ITS infrastructure. And what they really want to do is be able to filter out Waze events and maybe only look at Waze events on arterials, or maybe the opposite is true. Maybe they're looking for Waze data to be an indicator, an early warning of a problem on a road that they manage, but they don't care about the arterials because they're not responsible for those roads. The new filters that we have in the real-time RITIS map allow you to filter down different types of Waze event types, road classes, different types of Waze scores, reliability, and other types of scores in the Waze data, so that you're only seeing what you want to see and you're not seeing the stuff that you don't want to see, to help cut down on noise. Next, please. We also adjusted the maximum zoom level, allowing the map to show some greater details for different types of events and for different probe-based data as well. So that's been enhanced. Next. We've added a bunch of new data feeds. Now, this doesn't apply to everybody, but VDOT, we've added some of their TSS data. In California, we've updated some of the CCTV feeds, improved some timestamps there. Capital bike share data is now available in RITIS through some of the RITIS APIs. It's not visualized in the RITIS website yet. That's something we're still working on, but the actual data is there and available to those who use the RITIS API. We've done some additional updates for FDOT with their CCTV feeds and some other Waze stuff. Next, please. Some basic layout and visual enhancements have been made to the Traffic View website. Traffic View, if you haven't used it before, it's like the public version of RITIS. It's kind of like a traveler information website, and some agencies kind of white label the Traffic View website and put their own logos up on top of it and call it their own. We've made some minor enhancements here and there to that. Next, please. And there's a great number of little bugs here and there that we've worked on that have made things complicated or frustrating for users. I won't read through all these, but all of our release notes are available on ritis.org/release notes. You can go and look at all the detailed updates there. Next. So that's RITIS proper, but then some of the other subcomponents of RITIS include the Probe Data Analytics Suite, and we've been busy working there as well. Next. Here, we've recently added the Waze data to some of the Probe Data Analytics tools, including the Congestion Scan tool. So in addition to overlaying agency incident data, you can also now overlay the Waze incident data. And that's available up in the display options in the upper right-hand corner of the graphic. If you click that button, some options will pop up and you can turn on and off the Waze or the agency reported events. Next. We've also added Waze event data to the trend map visualizations. Again, you turn it on through the display options in the upper right-hand corner. Turn that on and off. Next. And Waze data has also been added to the Region Explorer. And you can also filter things by reliability score and see those in the results. The only PDA tools that are left to be added Waze data for right now are the Bottleneck Ranking tool. And I think there's one more, I can't remember. I know the Bottleneck Ranking tool, we're still working on that and should be done in the next couple of weeks. Next slide. And this is a big one that Oregon funded, Oregon DOT. We now have the ability to allow you to compute some of the different performance measures in the PDA suite, not just on the average road speed, or I'm sorry, the what's the word? The speed of the road kind of in the middle of the night. Instead of using that speed, reference speed, thank you, Justin. Instead of using reference speed, now you have the option to use posted speed limit as well. However, we don't have posted speed limit data from every agency yet, and we certainly don't have it for every road. So for agencies who are interested in having this feature become available to them, we just need you to supply your posted speed limit data to us in the same format that you would be supplying your volume data to us. So broken down by segment, which is not necessarily an easy thing to do for a lot of agencies, but that's available now. Next slide. And the biggest news, I think, is there is a brand new tool that was funded by the RITIS Enhancement Working Group. It's called the Corridor Time Comparison Tool. And I'm now going to turn it over to Charles Lattimer, who's going to do a deeper dive walkthrough of what this tool does and how it works. Charles?
All right, well, thank you, Michael. So yeah, let's take a little deeper dive into the corridor time comparison tool, also known as the C2C tool. This is a brand new tool. It came out last month, almost exactly a month ago, on April 5th was released. And it allows you to view congestion metrics as a function of location on the road. So it's kind of a combination between the congestion scan and the performance charts. And we'll kind of see how that works in a second here. The users can compare up to 2 date ranges. So you can look at 2 different months, 2 different weeks, 2 different years, and up to 7 hourly ranges within that time. So it gives you about 14 separate groups of lines that you can compare in each direction. So there's quite a bit of data that you can pack into the tool there. There are 5 metrics that are currently available. That includes speed, congestion, travel time, index, buffer index, and the planning time index. So let's take a look at just a brief case study on how you might be able to use this tool. So we're going to take a look at, let's say we want to know how has peak hour congestion changed over time, say maybe from 2019 to 2020. So we're going to take a look at a section of I-95 north of Atlanta, Georgia. So you can see Atlanta's down here. So this is kind of stretching up toward the South Carolina border. We're going to look at April 2019 versus April 2020, and looking at the AM and PM peak periods. So I've highlighted a couple interchanges on the map here, because this is typically where you're going to see, a lot of the action happening. So I just kind of want to highlight that. So we've got Interstate 285, the beltway around Atlanta here, and then there's Georgia 316, which comes off here. So it's kind of a major fork right there off of 85. So we could use the congestion scan to do this. And so the congestion scan is really good for showing detailed profiles of congestion, in certain times and locations. And so we can see here that, we have very directional congestion, so we have AM peak congestion here in the morning, nothing really in the other direction, but then in the afternoon, we see the congestion peaks up going in the other direction. We can also see that in 2020, this was the first month of lockdown, the congestion pretty much went away as traffic went down. But let's say we wanted to look at the AM peak periods kind of as a whole. And if we wanted to, how would we roll all this up into a single profile? It's a little bit difficult to do that and kind of get like a single number that you can compare between these 2 times over the span of the AM peak period. We could use the performance charts as well, and that shows you some of that. So we can see when our peak period starts and ends, in the AM and PM there. But the problem with this is we're looking at basically everything over that entire section of road there. So it doesn't really tell me where the congestion is happening. And so using the corridor time comparison, it's kind of the best of both worlds, for some of these specialized investigations. I'm going to flip over to the tool here real quick and kind of do a little walkthrough here. So the initial screen here is very similar to the basically the congestion scan. As the icons are even a little similar too. The corridor time comparison has like the lightning bolts coming down. So that's kind of what kind of makes it a little different. But so what you would do is you would like in the other tool, you would select your roads here. So if you want to do like I-85, you can go in and type that in, and it would pull up say that section of road in Georgia. And I won't go through the entire process because it's very similar to kind of what you're used to doing with the other tools. But you can select entire roads or partial roads, northbound, southbound. You can then also select your time periods. So for instance, what I did was you compare your months. So if you want to do the same month of the year, say 2019, or you can do like spans of months or individual months if you want to, do groups of time. You can limit things to specific days of the week. And then also, you can also compare entire years, year over year, or days, day to day. And you can add up to 2 time periods, to that if you wanted to. And then within that, you can then pick your time ranges. So, if you want to do, like, say, an AM peak period, PM peak period, I'm just doing this, do a midday, you're able to pick those. Then obviously your data source. And once you submit those, this is an example of a chart that comes back. So the one that I did has, April 2019 AM and PM peaks, and April 2020 PM and PM peaks. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here a little bit on this graph. We can use our display options here. We can flip these axes around if you want to. This is a mirrored axis, so you can see the low speed is in the middle and the high speed is on the outside. If you wanted those to be the same, you click that, and side by side. I'm going to keep them mirrored though, because I think that's kind of interesting. I'm going to use the advanced zooming options here. I'm going to zoom in here on a specific section of road. That. So, okay, now once we've done that, we can then, oops, sorry. Go back to here. Let's go through some of these other metrics here. These are the different 5 different metrics that we can pick from: speed, congestion, buffer time. I'll go through those in a second. I'm going to go ahead and start by just looking at April AM peak. You can see here we have a dotted line which shows the historical travel time, and then this is the travel time from the day in question, the period we're looking at in question there. So you can see here, southbound, we have a section of congestion here approaching I-285. But this area is actually here is a little bit better than normal. You can see it's faster. The speed is faster than historical. And then if we go ahead, we can also compare PM. You can see we have kind of a mirror image there. So we have our, here's our slowdown in the morning. Here's our slowdown in the afternoon in the other direction. If we wanted to compare, let's compare morning to 2019 to 2020. I'm going to turn off the historical average speeds there, so you can a little bit cleaner picture there. And so you can see the congestion here, the speed wise, between these points is pretty constant in 2020. So a big difference there. You don't see that slowdown in the morning there. If we flip that over to congestion, so 100% is basically moving at your reference speed or your free flow speed. And so we can see that, during that morning period in this area, kind of zoom in a little more, you can see the congestion pretty much went away, in our AM peak period. If we go over here to travel time index, here's our travel time index of 1. So things moving at the free flow speed, we can kind of see we have, typically we had travel time index of 3.3, at this particular location on the road, kind of approaching Georgia 120. And then if we go back over here to buffer index, you can see that, and then also the planning time index. So, planning time index, this tells us we have the lowest amount of travel time reliability in this area. So that can be useful for operations purposes, like where do I want to focus some of my some of my Tismo resources and things, that high area of high unreliability might be a good place to take a look at those. And then using this, we can make direct comparisons. So we can see, in this case, we have a planning time index of 7.2 versus 1 between those 2 years at the Georgia 316 approaching that particular exit. So that's everything basically collapsed down for the entire AM peak period, into that one number. So that's pretty powerful there. Let's see what else we got. A couple other options here. We talked about that. So we talked about our display options. We can also save this. We can save this as an Excel file, and it gives you the data behind this chart. And also you can export it as an image. So click through all those. Yeah, so we're very excited about the CDC tool, some of the new capabilities and insights that it's able to analyze. And we like the way it complements a lot of the existing PDA tools like Congestion Scan and performance charts. So, Michael, do you want to take questions now, or just go ahead and kind of save those to the end of the section?
Yeah, if there are questions, go for it.
Okay, sure.
Well, how about this? You type answers if there are any questions, and I'll move on.
Okay, that works.
Actually, you're advancing the slides, so don't type too much. All right, next slide, please. So next are updates to trip analytics. Next slide. So we have begun beta testing with a smallish group of users for our new version of trip analytics, which allows you to create all sorts of different study areas and do more detailed analysis of people and freight movement around the country. Greg Jordan with the CATT Lab is leading this effort. If you are interested in being a part of this beta tester group, you can write to Greg Jordan. Maybe Charles or someone can type his email address. It's gjordan1@umd.edu. He's happy to get excited beta testers on board. Next slide, please. And next, we're moving on to signal analytics. And I'm actually going to turn it back to Charles again, who's going to be talking about all the different updates that we made or all the updates we've made or are going to be making for signal analytics in the coming future. Take it away, Charles.
All right, thank you, Michael. Okay, so let's give a quick overview of signal analytics for those of you who this may be new to. So signal analytics is interesting and unique in the sense that it generates traffic signal performance measures based on high resolution probe data without the need for roadside infrastructure. So, a lot of signal analytics platforms, up to date, that have been put out previously, like ATSPM, they require the collection of high resolution controller data from the roadside, and the roadside detector data. Signal analytics uses trajectory data, at high granularity to extract some very similar performance measures that you would get from ATSPM. It's kind of like an ATSPM light. Because of that, it's very quick and simple to implement, and it's scalable from like a local solution all the way up to the statewide level, since the data is really kind of already there in the cloud. So this is what signal analytics looks like. So I'm gonna go ahead and change back over to give you a little demo of that. So this is the when you launch the tool, this is kind of what you will see. You're able to pick your regions here. So in this case, I'm looking at Rhode Island. So when you first come up, you see kind of all the states, all the signals that are available in the system. So I can go ahead and hit type in a road name there, and it would go ahead and find those on the map and highlight those signals. It will in a second. So yeah, there we go. So Cottage Street up there. So there's a couple there. You can also use the map tools. This is actually kind of my favorite way of doing it. You're able to, if you wanted to draw a little bounding box, around your signals, you can go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and add those to the, it looks like it's filtering within that selection set, which is kind of pretty awesome as well. So you can draw those boxes around there and then add those to your intersection selection set as well. Create your time periods to analyze. So you can look at, I believe it's up to 30 days at a time. So you can look at compare different weeks, different months, pick your days of the week. Kind of very similar to the other RITIS and PDA tools, time of day. This number 5 and 6 is interesting in the sense that you can also create custom titles for your reports, and this is very useful if you do use this tool on a regular basis. So you can say, okay, this is my May 2020 performance report for this particular road. And then you can also optionally add notes down here to explain what you found, kind of the purpose for doing your study. You can also add in some additional free text you can paste in there as well. You have the opportunity to add this later on, at a couple other points as well. So, but it's kind of good to put in kind of a basic title so you can at least find things in your My History list later easier. So once you submit the report, this is kind of an example of what you get back. So this is the intersection analysis page. So we see here at the top, this table is our ranked intersection movements. So we can see here we have, so this is Cottage Street and Newport Avenue we're looking at. We can see we have our approaches, movements, and total vehicle counts. There's the basic metrics here: progression on green, percent arrival on green, split failures, travel time, through the intersection, and those kind of things. We have the ability to filter on the table as well. So let's say we just wanted to take a look at through movements in one direction. So we can go ahead and say, I'm going to enter a filtering criteria that says that it contains, this is for, I want the approach to be, let's say, northbound. And then I want to add another constraint where I want the movement to be through. And then that collapses the table there so that all we now see are those through movements. And then we can sort and rank things upon, in that way. So that makes it a lot easier to compare apples to apples. In display options, we are able to then turn values on and off, columns on and off in this table. If you want to add additional ones or collapse the view there. Then we're also able to save, and this will pop it out into an Excel file. And there are quite a few additional other fields that are in the Excel file that don't show up on the chart on the screen just for lack of screen space. But when you hit the save as, you're able to get percentile values for many of these metrics, including like approach speed and control delay and those kinds of things. That's very useful to analyze offline if needed. At the bottom of the screen, we have a map view. So we can kind of zoom in here and we can click our intersections. And then once we're here, we can then click around these different movements, and we can see this little box will follow us around to orient us to what we're looking at for the intersection. I see here, this is not a 90-degree angle. This is kind of a simplified view, just to make it easy to orient yourself. But then you can then look on here to confirm which direction, which turning or through direction you're looking at. Here's the way we can then change what we look at. So this is a percent on green. We can change this if we wanted to. If we want to look at split failures or the other metrics, we can change that here. We also have the ability to we can flip this over to another intersection breakdown if we wanted to look at different metrics side by side as well. So that's very useful. Finally, then, this is let me go back up to the top here too. We're able to change the custom titles here as well. So if we wanted to change this to something else, we can do that from this sheet. And then also we can add our notes using this little button as well. As we find things in the report, things we want to follow up on later, maybe changes that we've made as a result of things that we see, we can do that there. And then the My History page then shows us, this is a list of all of the different reports that I have run. And you can see here, this is why the naming the reports becomes very, very useful. We can also then kind of, we can change those here if we need to by clicking on the little pencil icon. We can also add our notes here, additional things, and we can then sort on favorites. We can star those. And so here's some examples of some other notes that I've put in. You can actually put quite a few, quite a bit of information into these notes fields, and it expands to contain that. So that's good. All right, so that's kind of an overview of the current system here. In the pipeline, so things that are coming down the pipe here, more data fields. So we mentioned all the data fields that you see in the CSV files. We have an initiative underway to kind of restructure that drop-down menu to allow you to kind of zero in and pick have the ability to fix some additional fields to put on that table. We also have we're also working on an intersection matrix tool. So the power of this tool is it will give you a kind of a heat map that shows you the performance of each intersection movement based upon the day of the week and the time of the day. So using this, you can zero in and see, okay, do I have an issue, say during a particular, when your signal timing plans are, you can say, okay, I've got a problem during this time of the day. Knowing what time it is, you can then offline look at your signal timing plan and see, what adjustments might need to be made to it. So we're very excited about that. Once we're able to pull that time series in, we are looking at doing some a group of time series graphs. So here's an example of what that could look like. So we have, this is a kind of your stopped vehicle counts and arrival on green, and kind of superimposed also upon your kind of the observed vehicle, the kind of the percent arrival on green through there too. So again, this will allow you to kind of identify issues by time of day and timing plan. We also like to be able to, we also are working on the stacking of performance measures, where you can pick a particular intersection and then you can pull up some different, basically stack those together on top of that to compare the kind of the performance of those intersections over time there. And then also comparing consecutive interchanges to see how things look from one intersection to another, and kind of be able to identify how those stack up and compare with each other. So that's all that I have. Michael, I'll go ahead and turn things back over to you if there's any questions.
I've been trying to answer the questions that come in.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, so now I think we are turning it back over to Joanna for Rick and John.
It's Rick's turn up right now.
Yes, it is. And yeah, all right, great. Slides are up. Hello, everyone. Thank you again to everyone who's participating today. We're wanted to share a little bit of feedback that we generally for any session workshop that we deliver, either through the CATT Lab or through the Eastern Transportation Coalition. We like to get feedback and input on how to improve said workshops. And as you just saw, how to improve our technology platform and solution stack. We've been busy the past month and change. As Denise had shared with all of you, we had a couple of workshops this past 45 days or so. In March, we had a workshop on developing the performance, corridor performance reports at 2-hour workshop. And then again in April, we had another workshop on trip and travel patterns, OD, waypoint data using trip analytics. A number of different polls that were conducted. I wanted to share the results of some of those polls. It set the stage, I feel, for how we continue to support you to deliver not only additional content, capability, and resources to the user community, but sets a stage for more work in terms of development of workshops and helping you be successful in the deployment and utilization of the RITIS platform. In March, the end of March, we had this workshop on the report templates and got a number of pieces of information back from the user community on that. Really pleased to confirm that the report templates that we have shared on the RITIS website are aligned to support a number of different executive level, elected officials, sharing of stories and report information to folks that aren't traditionally technically oriented or technically focused. So we will continue to build out that suite of report templates for the user community and add to that over time, but getting that confirmation that we're aligning those report templates with the right community of users that you need to message or tell your story to as a result of running analysis in PDA is super helpful. Also confirmation that, yeah, thank you, CATT Lab and the teams that have built out these report templates. Thank you for making these available. That center diagram, just again, that polling question is just to confirm, are these resources helpful and valuable for your agency? And we got some nice feedback on that. We also, it was kind of the first of sorts of a detailed workshop from the CATT Lab in collaboration with the Eastern Transportation Coalition. You know, we said we had asked the community, there's about 150 folks that participated in this particular webinar. We'd asked, do you find this useful? Yes, we do. And that's kind of setting the stage for the next couple of slides. I want to share some feedback with you as well. So next slide is some feedback that we got from our trip. No, you had it. Perfect. This is some feedback that we got from our trip analytics workshop. Michael shared with you some cool new innovations and some work that we're doing with the next release of Trip Analytics, that waypoint, origin, destination, trip and travel pattern solution. We're currently developing and working with a core set of users to test out this the current release in beta form before it goes live to the rest of the user community. Part of the question, one of the questions that we asked during this April 8th Trip Analytics workshop was, hey, how many of you out there are using macro or micro level modeling as part of your job function? Got some interesting feedback in that, you know, out of the 150 or so that were participating, about 42 to 46% of the users that were on do use micro level modeling as part of their work function. And they'll be happy to know that much of the new features within Trip Analytics supports that community really, really well. We were also interested to get feedback from those that were on this Trip Analytics workshop call and webinar. Like, what other additional data sources, OD and or waypoint data sources, would you be interested in the CATT Lab integrating into Trip Analytics? Again, much like most of the Redis platform products, we are data agnostic. We do listen to our user community and super interested to hear what additional vendor OD waypoint data we could be evaluating and working with you to support in terms of integration into Trip Analytics. And some of the results are there in that center diagram. Looking at this idea that, yeah, we love these workshops. Can you do more of them? What are some of the topics? This last graph on the right, what are some of the topics that you'd like to see that CATT Lab develop additional workshops on? You know, something like Charles had just shared with us, maybe a deeper dive exercise with our signal analytics was a signal performance measure analytics workshop. That's a candidate workshop for the future. Maybe some more detailed Trip Analytics workshops, as well as real-time incident detection and management were identified as interesting workshops for future activities that the CATT Lab can contribute to. Next slide. So with that, we threw that idea of additional workshops out to the Eastern Transportation Coalition's Tismo planning group. And we were happy, the CATT Lab was happy to hear that there's some support of 2 more additional Redis workshops for fiscal year 2022. We'll be working on setting, planning for those, scheduling of those to fit around some of those scenarios that I just mentioned. And we'll get that on the calendar and get those communicated to the user community soon. One of the other aspects that's kind of bubbled up as part of these workshops that we've been delivering, some of the training that I and some of my colleagues at the CATT Lab have heard from users is, hey, CATT Lab, hey, Eastern Transportation Coalition, you guys are delivering some really cool workshops. This is super useful in terms of development of my profession. Are there ways to earn professional development hours by participating in these events and workshops? So next slide. With that in mind, we wanted to throw a poll out there to kind of get some feedback from the RITIS user community in particular, as to, is this something that you might be interested in? Would you be in favor of? Do you think it would be useful in terms of your own professional development, maybe on behalf of your agency, to create, help develop, and earn professional development hours by participating in RITIS workshops? So you see there's a poll up there. Love to get your feedback on this because it will help us drive some exercises and putting a curriculum together to support professional development hours for RITIS users. So yes, no, perhaps would depend on the topic that we'd like to earn professional development hours. How's that, Paul?
Yeah, we're just going to give folks just a few more seconds. Anybody else who'd like to chime in, please do so now.
Yeah, thank you for voting, providing your input. About 65 folks still on the line, so your input is valuable. We appreciate it. Is this something you'd be interested in?
We've got a few more votes. We're going to close that now.
All right, Joanna. And drum roll, results. Yes. All right. So kind of split 50-50. But a good number of you are interested in this. So we'll continue to evolve our planning of that. And of course, we'll be forthcoming with more information as it comes available. So thank you.
We're going to turn it over to John Allen.
Okay, thanks, Joanna. And afternoon, everybody. I just have 3 quick slides today to bring you up to speed on where we are with the performance reporting templates and working group. Next slide, please. So you may remember from the last user group meeting, we announced that RITIS reporting templates were live on the website, which now includes quarter performance, project assessment, and monthly congestion. So we did a poll to understand what reporting templates you'd like to see next, and you can see the results here. So we chose 3 that we think we can get out to you pretty quickly in the next month or so. I just wanted to say for you folks out there who are newcomers to RITIS, if you go to ritis.org and click on the templates link in the upper right corner, you can check them out as well as some example use cases, step-by-step guide, how to build them, and some design resources so you can create your own reports quickly and easily. Next slide, please. So now, again, we have a working group for developing these templates and other materials for the reports. So we're gonna have a meeting pretty soon of this group that really have been instrumental in making these templates possible. And I want to thank them again for all their hard work and their input and their just thoughtful participation. So we'll be working on those 3 templates in the last slide, and this group will help shape those new templates. And we're going to brainstorm the others that were there, come up with some new ones that folks would like to see. And then get some feedback from the group on using the RITIS templates page to see how we can make that better. Next slide, please. And, oh, I think you went ahead one other slide. That's it. Next slide. And finally, Ed Stoke, who is from Baltimore Metropolitan Council and is also a working group member, is developing their first quarter 2022 congestion report using some prototype templates we developed for him to test drive. Ed just sent me his working project for this quarter, and it's looking good. And we're going to use this when he finishes it up as a way to help finalize the top template. And he's also agreed to share the report and talk about his using Redis and the templates at a future user group meeting. So Ed, we appreciate that. And to Rick's point before about what folks are using the templates for, a lot of them are for upper management, senior leadership, those less technically oriented folks. So as you can see, the one in the front there would be for that group. It's like a simplified version, very easy to understand. I won't get into all the details about that, but we have choices of ones for technical audiences and ones for less technical audiences. And we think you'll appreciate that choice there. So that's it for me. Back to you, I guess, Jesse.
All right. Thanks everyone who presented there. Lots of great information. I think we got a lot of good questions in the chat that have been answered. Lots of good technical questions. So don't know if it helps to read those. I will just note someone also suggested AICP credit hours also for some of those training webinars. Definitely a great idea. I think it's often possible to do both, engineering and AICP credits if you get all the right paperwork filled out. Also, just a good reminder, there was a question about what does RITIS stand for. So good for all of us who've been doing this for a long time to remember that we've got a lot of new members. So important to read some of the acronyms such as Regional Integrated Transportation Information System, which some of us have been saying for a long time. So took for granted. So apologies there, but thanks everyone for answering all the questions in the chat. I don't know if there's anything, Michael or anyone else wanted to elaborate on as far as any of the chat questions, but maybe as you think about that, one question that I had that I think maybe others would have early on, Michael, when you were kind of covering some of the new data sets available in Redis, just wondering if you could go over for folks, what is the process for, requesting and adding new data sets to Redis? So for example, you mentioned the capital bike share data, if you maybe can just kind of touch on what is the process there for people to follow if they have data sets they want to add.
Yeah, so start by reaching out to myself or the support team, support@redis.org. Tell us your agency, tell us the data set. Preferably tell us how to get access to it. Because sometimes we have people that reach out to us and say, hey, we really want information on where squirrels are. But, if that data set doesn't exist or there's no way to get access to squirrel related location data, we can't do much with it. The more information you can provide us when you reach out, the better. Or we can help you talk to your technical staff that might know where the data is. And then we can do an evaluation of whether it's something we can readily and easily pull in without any funding, or if it's something that would require a little extra work. But there's a lot of data sets that we do just for free because they're things we already know how to integrate, and we just want to grow.
Great, thank you. Yep, bottom line, reach out and ask. There's a lot of things that are possible if we have the data sets. Don't see any other open questions here. Just want to comment on, all the improvements are just looking fantastic. Things like the signal analytics tool. It's just unbelievable some of the things that we're able to do now. So kudos to everybody who's been working on all the various efforts. And thanks everybody for sharing today. I guess got a few minutes left. So if anyone has any final questions, feel free to enter those in, or you can also use the raise hand feature if you want to speak and ask a question out loud. Otherwise, if we don't have any other questions, looks like Michael has something he wants to say.
We do want to mention one other thing. So we had our large Redis enhancement working group meeting, a few weeks ago. It wasn't that long ago. And as part of that Redis working group, we had agencies tell us, whether or not they were going to be able to commit to funding again this year to build out some new tools. And the ones that funded last year were Georgia, Massachusetts, Oregon, Virginia, and Michigan. And a lot of the things that I just showed earlier today were funded by them. So now we're in the planning process for what we're going to work on big next year. And we had everyone who attended that meeting vote and give us their top, I think their top 5 priorities. Like if you could choose, these are the things you'd have us work on. And we had a list of about 40 different enhancements that we could work on. This is the unofficial results. I say it's unofficial because, you know, sometimes we had 5 people from one agency who each voted, and there are also agencies there that aren't really funding this at all. So we are meeting again next week to talk about what we're actually going to focus on next year and solidify some of the funding donations. So the next meeting is Thursday, May 12th, 2:30 to 3:30. If you're a member of the group, you're going to receive an invitation if you haven't already. If you're interested in joining the group, write to myself or Denise, and we will tell you how to get involved, and we'll have more information about what we finally decided upon at the next user group meeting. I think that's it. Yeah, and this is the time where you get to complain about anything that's not working the way you want it to work, or something that you desperately need. Anytime you complain, the things you complain about are what get added to the enhancement working group. So if you don't complain, things don't get better.
Good point. We've made a lot of great improvements over the years based on all the feedback, you know, people getting in there, using the tools, finding out where they don't work, things that they wish they could do. So now's your chance for those of you hanging on here. If you have anything else you want to bring up, again, feel free to use the raise hand feature or the Q&A box, and we'll get to those. I know you said those were unofficial results, Michael, but did you have a sense of what some of the top items were that people are really interested in? There's a lot on that chart.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to be able to do everything that's on there. The one that had the most votes, I don't know if it's the most #1 votes, but the most votes was on automated work zone reporting.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a real-time work zone tool today that will tell you, you know, here's where the problems are in your which work zones aren't performing terribly well, what the queues are like, all that sort of stuff. What people are looking for is more of a, okay, this work zone's been going on for a month now. Tell me about it, the entire month, not right now, but what's happened this entire month. Almost like an after action view for the work zone. Imagine taking some of the templates that John Allen and his folks have been talking about for a long time and building a bunch of templates for work zone reporting that just automatically get populated and emailed to you once a week or once a month or whatever. So trying to work on that. That's a big item that we haven't fully defined what the report would look like or what would be involved, but that could be super large or, you know, smallish, depending on where we go. Some of the other enhancements that I think were high on the list. Actually, can we just go back and look at the list? I think it's maybe 2 slides back, 2 or 3 slides back. There we go. The other ones were sharing of dashboards and reports. So we have, you know, people can create their own dashboards, their own reports, but they are stuck within your account in Redis. And what people want to be able to do is share those with other people in their agency and other people outside of your agency without it overloading your inbox, overloading your own reports. So coming up with a mechanism that would allow you to do that. Also publishing those reports. So making your report available to anyone online, regardless of whether they have a Redis account or not. Maybe you just want to stick it in as part of your agency's website or something like that, being able to publish reports. Let's see, advanced time selection in the Probe Data Analytics Suite. That's being able to go in and say, I want to look at every single Wednesday in calendar year 2019, except avoid any Wednesday in which there was a football game or a marathon or a holiday or something like that. So being able to do some more refined time selections. And then the causes of congestion tool that we are currently working on right now, that will allow you to choose any date range, any road, and integrate your own agency's data into it and tell you why there's congestion on the roadway. There have been a number of visualization and analytics enhancements to those tools that people want us to implement. I think those are the big ones.
Great, all great improvements, just a matter of having the funding and the time to work on all these great things. But again, we appreciate everybody's feedback on these tools. So it looks like we're right up on 2:30 here. Thanks everyone for sticking around. I don't know if anybody wants to have any last words to close this out, but again, just thanks to everybody for tuning in from all across the country. Thanks to all of our presenters. If anyone has questions, there's contact information here. So I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything before we end here.
Jesse, just thank you for a great job as always. Thank you.
Oh, sure. My pleasure, Denise. And I see we had one last question that came in about talking to the EPA about a report to show where congestion is to aid with some of the equity questions. Obviously, that's comes up a lot in terms of the new transportation funding bill, the IIJA. A lot of different definitions of what equity is, but definitely valuable to kind of marry these types of data sets. Great suggestion there.
So a question back to Craig. Would this literally be just congestion, or are we looking for emissions as well? And the reason I ask is the CATT Lab actually partnered with NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, about a year ago to write a proposal for transportation, emissions, and pollution equity analytics application. It was like several $1 million that we submitted for. I don't think, well, we definitely weren't successful in getting anyone to fund the tool. But if this is something you're interested in and other agencies are interested in, we may be able to go back to the Department of Energy or US DOT and reinvigorate this proposal. We just need to know who's interested in it. So
Yeah.
if you could write to me, oh, here, Craig's right.
Okay. Yeah, there's everybody has their own equity tools these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the EPA one. And I know that's something we would be interested in our region. There's new fund code called carbon reduction funds, and there's definitely an emphasis on equity. So I do think that air quality piece would be interesting to know more about there, sort of finding the road segments with the biggest bang for your buck, which I think is sort of what you were planning to look into there.
Yeah, and I forgot NIST was also involved. I tell you what, maybe at the next RITIS user group, we can have Dr. Franz, who was the lead investigator for this project. Maybe he can give a short presentation on what we're planning to do and see where we can take it.
Yeah, great suggestion, Craig. I definitely think there's probably a lot of renewed interest in that. So maybe we can dust it off and have more success getting funding this time.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate all the feedback. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our presenters. And Michael and Denise, if you can stand